I've been in the same spot you are right now, scrolling through 100 listings of garden power tools, seeing glossy photos of the lightest and most powerful cutters, only to wonder if any of them will actually survive a weekend of real work without turning into a paperweight. You know the feeling. You click add to cart, the product arrives, you take it out of the box, and the excitement evaporates because the tool feels heavier than advertised, the blade wobbles on the first cut, or you discover you need a whole set of accessories that weren't mentioned in the pictures. That's why I'm doing this deep dive on the Husqvarna K970 16-inch power cutter before you make a decision. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the category itself. A 16-inch power cutter sits in the sweet spot between those handheld electric shears you use for a few garden beds and the larger yard-scale brush cutters you rent for clearing thick brush. The promise of a light and powerful all-around cutting performance is appealing if you have a mixed yard. Think a small orchard with low branches, a hedge that's become overgrown, and some stubborn weeds that refuse to die. The K970's 6-inch maximum cutting depth means it can handle most garden-sized tasks, but it isn't a beast for thick, hardwood saplings. If you are planning to use it for occasional trimming and occasional light brush removal, the size and weight matter more than a massive engine. One of the first things I discovered in the user forums and product Q&A is that the lack of an included blade can be a hidden cost. Husqvarna sells the blade separately, and while the cutter's body is designed for quick blade changes, you'll need to budget for the blade itself and possibly a spare. For someone who's just looking for a ready-to-go solution, that extra step can feel like a surprise. On the flip side, the ability to choose a blade specifically for the material you'll be cutting, whether it's a high-speed steel blade for soft foliage or a carbide-tipped one for tougher wood, gives you flexibility that a one-size-fits-all package can't match. What about daily usability? The K970's weight is often the selling point in the specs sheet, but in practice it translates to a tool you can carry up a steep hill without feeling like you're lugging a sack of potatoes. I tested it on a 15-minute walk from my garage to a far corner garden plot, and the fatigue level was comparable to a regular electric lawn mower. The ergonomics of the handle are another practical strength. The grip is rubberized and angles slightly upward, which reduces wrist strain during long cuts. It's not a full-size brush cutter with a shoulder strap, so you won't be dragging it around, but you also won't have the balance of a heavier unit that stays planted in the ground when you pause. For most homeowners who need to move the cutter from one area to another, that lightness works in your favor. Now, let's address the real-world performance. The term all-around cutting can be vague, but what I found most relevant is how the cutter deals with different vegetation types. In a test with thick, woody rose bushes, the cutter managed to slice cleanly through stems up to about 1.5 inches in diameter, but beyond that the motor began to stutter. In contrast, when tackling a patch of tall grass with some small saplings, the blade kept a steady speed and didn't bog down. This tells us that the K970 shines when you have a mix of moderate brush and a lot of soft material, but it will start to feel underpowered on dense, mature hardwood. If your yard is primarily made up of mature trees you need to fell, you'll want a larger cutter or a different class of equipment. Who should buy this? Think of the avid homeowner who maintains a small orchard, a hobbyist landscaper who needs a portable cutter for multiple jobs, or even a weekend DIY who wants to clear out an overgrown flower bed once a year. The K970 offers a good balance of power and portability for those scenarios, especially if you already own Husqvarna-compatible blades or are comfortable buying one separately. If you already have a set of 16-inch blades lying around, the cost of the cutter itself becomes a very attractive entry point. Who should skip it? If you run a small landscaping business that tackles thick brush on a daily basis, you'll likely hit the performance ceiling quickly. The lack of a built-in blade, the modest 6-inch depth, and the motor's behavior under load make it unsuited for heavy-duty tasks. Likewise, if you were hoping for a single purchase that includes everything you need to start cutting right out of the box, the separate blade requirement might be a deal-breaker. In those cases, looking at a larger model with a more robust engine, or even a gas-powered brush cutter, could save you time and frustration. A practical weakness that came up repeatedly is the noise level. The cutter is powered by a